of EPEW, and we're starting off the morning super strong. All of our awesome superpowers. We have Kasia Givenrod in the house. Woot woot. You're in Southern California, right, Kasia?
Yes, I'm in Orange County. I teach in Brea.
Nice. And she's a toy teacher of the year. So it's going to be awesome. So welcome. And it looks like we all made it from the waiting room. Awesome. Questions can be entered into the chat during the presentation, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. If you have questions, just put them in the chat. Let us know, but thanks for being here. All right, our awesome presenter, go for it.
All right. Okay. So welcome everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining me, and hopefully you guys have some coffee and you're ready to start off another awesome day today. You know, I'm really excited. This is my first time presenting at this workshop, and I've always heard such wonderful things about it. So thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of it and spending some time with me this morning. I am hoping that whether you're a general PE teacher or an adapted PE teacher, you're going to take away a lot of really valuable information today that you can take straight to your school year that's about to start and start implementing ideas and ways to plan for how to best be an inclusive teacher. So let's just get started. Let me share my screen real quick. And all right, we all see this? Are we good? Yes, perfect. Okay, so a little bit about me. Why do you care about listening to what I have to say? I am an adapted physical education specialist. My journey started at Cal Poly Pomona, go Broncos, whoop, whoop. And I did my undergraduate, both of my teaching credentials and my master's at Cal Poly. And I then started my teaching career as a general PE teacher, where I taught full-time at a junior high, which I loved. I learned a lot of really cool, valuable information during that, and I actually think that experience has helped me support my gen ed teachers with how to include students. After that, I switched over to adapted physical education, and I've been doing that for the last 8 years. And my whole teaching career has been at Brea Olinda Unified School District. We are a small district with 1 high school, 1 junior high, and 6 elementaries. And so I am the only adapted PE teacher in my district. So that means I teach all of my little 3-year-olds all the way up into when they graduate high school. And the really amazing part of that is this last June, I was lucky enough to be at graduation with 3 of my seniors that I had as 3-year-olds when I did my student teaching. So it was a very full circle moment. I get very bonded to my family, so that was super cool. In my district, I am also the only PE teacher, and I am also the unified sports coach. I'm going to talk about both of those programs later, but they're pretty awesome. And I can't say enough good things about those programs, especially when it comes to inclusion. And finally, as it was mentioned earlier, I was so incredibly honored to be named the 2020 CAFERD Adapted PE Teacher of the Year. So that's a little bit about me. So let's get started. So let's talk about goals. We're teachers. We love goals, especially us special ed oriented ones. What is the plan today? So what I really want for you guys today is to leave with a better understanding of inclusion in a physical education setting. So whether you're a general PE teacher who I hope will find effective ways and tools to get those students with special needs effectively included in your class, or if you're an adapted PE teacher who is looking for ideas on how to better collaborate with your general PE teachers or your district to foster a more inclusive environment for our students with special needs in their classes. Okay, so I'm hoping that both groups can take away a lot today. I also want you to leave with ideas on how to foster a more inclusive culture on campuses with inclusion programming ideas. So that means kind of like beyond our just physical education class, there's a lot of other opportunities out there that we can explore. And I've started a few programs in my district that have been successful that I'm going to talk about. So maybe it'll kind of spark a fire for you guys to do the same. And the last thing is to leave with a better understanding of information that you can better educate yourself. So if you're a general PE teacher, you might not be super familiar with a lot of the terminology or ways we use language or information about certain disabilities that will help you be better at inclusion. Or if you're an adapted PE teacher, ways that you can take all of your knowledge, because you probably have that information already, how can you take that and educate others? So these are all things that I've done myself personally. So it's gonna be a lot of anecdotal information, a lot of personal success stories. And like I said, hopefully you'll just leave today with a lot of great ideas that you can try to tweak and make work for your own district. Okay. Okay, so before we really talk about what inclusion in PE looks like, we need to understand what inclusion really is. So what is the definition of inclusion in a classroom? And this definition I found is super basic, super simple, but it's very concise, and that's why I like it. Inclusive education means that students with and without disabilities learn alongside one another in the same classroom setting and with lessons that are acceptable to all. Those three things are key to make inclusive PE work. All right, and so we're gonna talk about all those questions underneath, the what, the how, the where, the who, and the why. We're gonna talk about all of that together to try to get a more full picture of how we can set this up for our students in a successful way, okay? And we're gonna revisit that definition a lot as we go along in the session. So what does inclusion or inclusive physical education look like? Okay, you guys all know how you set up your lessons. So I'm only gonna talk to my own experience, but when we talk about a PE lesson, there's always goals. There's always, what is your end game? What do you want the students to leave this class learning, okay? And most teachers will tell you standards. I have, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many standards. That's my goal that I want my students to work on and be able to achieve today. Okay, so when I have a teacher who has said, Kasia, I don't know how I'm supposed to get your 4 students with special needs in my class of 90 general ed 3rd graders to do the same thing. Well, I always follow that with a bunch of questions. So what is your goal? What is your end game? Let's say it's capture the flag. Okay, so for like a Braveheart kind of activity, there's a lot of chaos, there's rules you have to follow if you get tagged or if your flag gets pulled and you have to pull things from one side to the other. You're doing offense, you're doing defense. And they're trying to figure out how to get my students, my adapted PE students, included in that activity. So I'll ask, okay, what are the standards we're trying to meet in this activity? And usually it'll be like, okay, well, of course I want them improving their cardiovascular fitness because it's a constant running game. And then I also want them to be able to move in an activity space, avoiding obstacles and opponents. Okay, cool. So then I would follow up with, what does success look like? And then the teachers kind of pause. And I say, because we as teachers, we define success. That's up to us. We're the ones who define what success looks like. So if we have this really, really high expectation of everyone's following all of the rules, everyone's going to be looking exactly the same as they do it, that's not an inclusive idea of success, okay? Because kids aren't all the same, right? So I would say, okay, have an instructional aid on one end and put another instructional aid on the other. Tell my student to run from one adult to the other, then pause, take a break, then send them back, have them pause, take a break. Are they still meeting your 2 goals and standards for your class? Are they running and improving their cardiovascular fitness? Yes. Are they still hopefully avoiding obstacles in an activity space? Yes. Are they also on the same field as all of the other students, looking like they're doing the exact same thing? Yes. That is how we can help shape inclusion in our classes. It's a mindset. We have this lens that we look at our students through, at our lessons through. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me when I switched from general physical education to adapted, was understanding that I had to change my definition of success for my students. Because I went from my expectations being like, oh my gosh, everybody, you know, those elite athletes, they're the ones that are doing great. Well, no, everybody was doing great. It was just whether or not it was matching what my definition of success was. So I think when we look at what inclusive PE looks like, we have to really take a step back and think about how we define success. And what does that look like for all of our students in our classroom? Okay, and does that definition of success promote inclusion for everyone? So how on earth am I supposed to include all of these students with all of these abilities into my class? I know that it seems daunting, right? Oh my gosh, this is so much more work. Again, it's all about the lens. I like to see it not as more work. I like to see it as just providing more options. When we provide more options for our students, they will inherently be more successful. I'm an adapted PE teacher, so I'm schlepping equipment everywhere, all around the city of Brea in my whatever can fit in my Explorer. And I have like a Mary Poppins bag of PE equipment. You know, there's everything in it. And I do that because I could be in the middle of a lesson and realize, ooh, that ball is way too small for Johnny. I got to get a bigger one. And then I pull out a bigger one. So it's all about finding options to allow the students to access what you're trying to teach to help them be successful. And a lot of times teachers will struggle with that in the beginning when they've either first started teaching, or if it's a classroom teacher that's trying to take their students out for PE. So this form I have right here is super basic, super simple, but for someone who's really new to modifying equipment, rules, distances, things like that, this is a great resource that I share with my teachers. And so it has different skills, different activities, and basically what it is, okay, for catching. Let's say, you know, I have a student with visual impairment. I want to make sure to pick the right color ball. Let's say it's a student that is really new to catching. I'm going to change the size, start large, and then make my way smaller, okay, as they get better at it. So it really just lines up, okay, here is where we start for the easier catching skill. And then as we progressively want to challenge that student, these are ways we can change the equipment size, speed, weight, texture, the distance of the partner, things like that. So I will give this to teachers and say, hey, this is just to like kind of start the creative juices flowing, and let me know, if you need any more help. And this tends to they don't come to me anymore, because this really does tend to help them at least process, oh, it's not that challenging. Like, I'm overthinking this. I can do this. I just needed a little bit of a roadmap to get me there. So like I said, this is just, I have lots of different skills and activities on here. And I share that with my teachers as a resource for them. So the how, right? We're kind of looking at how do we modify the gross motor skills? Well, let's think back to our goals again. Let's think, what is our definition of success? Let's say we're talking about catching. Let's say it's catching, and the class is going to be working on how to catch pop flies. So, they have a partner that's either hitting or throwing the ball in that big rainbow. They're getting their bodies under it, catching, bringing it towards their chest for control. What about my students? Who's to say that my student can't stand 10 feet away from me and I toss a rainbow toss underhand to them and they catch it against their body? Are they still working on the same skill? Yeah, it just looks a little different, but that's okay. They're still working towards the same goals. And I think that one of the things that I forget where, I wish I remembered where I heard this comparison, because I really wish I could give this person credit, because it's not my comparison to make. But if you're teaching third graders how to, and it's reading, if you have a third grader and this third grader reads at a kindergarten level, you're not going to sit there and give them a third grade book and say, good luck. That's not what we do. That's not how we teach reading, because that's not how kids learn how to read and build on their successes. You give them a kindergarten level book and they build. Well, why would we do that in PE? Why would we expect every single student to be doing that high level skill when there's some kids that aren't there yet? So let's provide options. If you do stations, you just have like a small, a medium, and a large size ball, and let the students decide which one they need to be successful, right? It's something as simple as that, just providing more options. Another way that I like to help get things moving in a way that's kind of like a little bit more organic and natural is peer buddy systems. I'm going to talk specifically about unified PE and things like that, but even at the elementary level, just partnering up your students can be a huge game changer. That can help your students learn all kinds of skills from their peers in a way that's just kind of, like I said, it's more organic. Okay, so don't be afraid to use those peer buddy systems, because it can seem overwhelming in a class of 90 students. All right, and again, celebrate the wins. You define success. Celebrate the big wins and the little wins, because those small wins are typically the ones that are hardest to get. So make sure to celebrate all of them, because that makes everybody feel included. Excuse me. Okay. Does the where really matter? Oh my gosh, yes, the where really matters. Oh man, I can't even tell you how many times I have heard this comment. I'll be like, hey, so how is Johnny doing in your class in general PE? Oh, he's doing great. Wait, are we talking about the same Johnny? Are you sure? Like, how's it going? Like, tell me about it. Oh yeah, he's at the back of the class with the other SDC students, and they do like whatever they want back there. Oh no, that is not inclusion. The where matters, okay? If your students are parked at the back of the activity space, that is not considered inclusion. If we go back and we think about that definition of what inclusion is, we remember that they are learning alongside each other. They are in the same space, and they're learning in lessons that are accessible to all of them, okay? None of those things are happening if the students with special needs are off to the side by themselves, okay? That's what I call the inclusion illusion. Them physically being there is not inclusion. They have to actively be included in what's happening, okay? So do not think that just because they are in your physical space, that that's inclusion, okay? Also, just something to keep in mind, my students, for example, have adapted physical education, but my APE service minutes do not fulfill their required minutes from the state for physical education. So all of my students also go to general PE. General PE is also one of the largest amounts of mainstreaming time that my students receive. Okay, and I work typically with students with moderate to severe disabilities. So they're always pretty much in a self-contained classroom. They don't get mainstreamed out for a lot of activities. PE tends to be it. And that mainstreaming opportunity is huge for them. That's an opportunity for them not only to work on their gross motor skills with a typical peer model, but it helps them work on behaviors. They get to see models of appropriate behavior in a physical activity space. They get to learn different communication styles. They get to learn social skills. So that opportunity is basically lost when you have them to the side by themselves. And trust me, I know, I work with these kids all the time. I know that it's not always easy. And do some students need a break? Yeah. Sometimes they need to sit out and take a breather because it can be overwhelming with 90 kids running around like crazy. I get that. But the class should be included in the activity with those accessible activities, those modifications made to your lesson so that they too can join in and be a part of it. Okay. All right. So who on earth is going to help me? Because I am one teacher and there's 90 of them. Okay. There are these wonderful people called instructional aides. All right. And some people might be rolling their eyes because they have those aides that don't actively participate or show up in the wedge high heel shoes and their cell phones. But I will say that those tend to not be the norm. I am very lucky in that I work with some amazing instructional aides. Okay. And my experience with them has been, it's not that they don't want to do well and they don't want to help, they don't know how. So when instructional aides come out to a PE setting, it's 100% different than what they know and are more familiar with in the classroom. So they come out to us and they're like, what do you want me to do? But typically we're so busy running around and getting everything set up and getting class started that we don't take the time to explain what we want them to do. Okay. So I recommend a couple things. The first thing is daily check-ins. In my district, our elementary PE program usually starts with pretty routine-driven warm-ups. During those warm-ups, the aides in that class from the PE department can run the warm-ups while you as the teacher can go and explain to the aides what the plan is for the day. Here's modifications that are a good idea and that are available for you. How is Johnny doing today? Have we had any behaviors? Hey, are we having a good day, a bad day? How's it going? How are we feeling today? Those little check-ins take like 2 minutes, maybe. And it means a huge world of difference to how well that aide is going to support you. Okay, we have to give them the tools to help us. They're not going to inherently know what to do. Okay, and good communication. And what I say by that is when I'm teaching, you know, I work with groups of about like 8 or so students at a time is my average. But again, moderate to severe students. So when I'm giving instructions for the day, I'm typically not saying it to the kids, I'm saying it to the adults. I want to make sure that all of those aides are listening, because when we break off into station rotations, or if we're doing our big activity, I need to know that they know what to do. So really good at keeping those lines of communication open is huge, huge. Okay, I also have right here, this is something that I give to my instructional aides who come from the classroom every year. So if they're new to me and they're new to adapted PE, I give them this. And this is just honestly me opening the lines of communication with, here's my expectations, so that there's no surprises. You know exactly what's coming. Your job is this. You're going to help things run smoothly. You're going to listen to the directions I give and help them do it most of the time. Dress appropriately for PE. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. The shoes. Oh, the shoes. And then you're gonna, help with instruction. You're going to make appropriate changes if you need to. That's okay. I can be flexible. Please don't sit back and watch. The kids will look to you. If you get involved in play, they will. So this is really just me mapping out what I expect from them when we're together. And it takes out so much of the unknown. And I've learned that after I give this to them, they are so much more comfortable coming to me with questions. And I would much rather they ask me questions than do nothing, right? So, and that's kind of why I do this. I want to make sure, like, when in doubt, ask. Okay, so this has just been something, like I said, that's been a good way to start that communication ball rolling, because here's what happens with instructional aides. They are the ones who come to your class knowing nothing about your class and typically nothing about your content, but they know everything about that student. So you need to take the knowledge that both of you have and bring that together to help that student be the most successful. Okay, because they can help you immensely. They can be like, ooh, Johnny has a weird thing about that noise that thing makes, and this is going to be an issue. Can we like use a different? So, they have valuable information. So use them, but you have to really actively check in with them, get involved with them so that they feel more comfortable assisting in class. Okay. Okay, why? Why do we care? Why is inclusion important? Oh my gosh, because everyone benefits. Everyone. Literally, there is not a single person that does not benefit. When my adapted PE students are included in an effective way in a general education setting, it is like confetti and rainbows go off. It is literally, they are so happy. They form such incredible bonds, and it is game changing. I have in my unified PE class at the high school, I had a student who, he didn't care about having friends. It just, I had known him since he was 3 years old, and he never cared about having friends. But in unified PE, he met this one mentor that was his buddy. Like, they loved each other. They've both graduated, and they still log on to some online game together once a week, and they play together online. It's amazing. The benefit, not just when it comes to, yes, they learn gross motor skills. Yes, they're learning that social interaction. It forms bonds with kids that our students with special needs are oftentimes kind of isolated in their own little self-contained classrooms, and they don't have a lot of those opportunities. So let's give them that. Also, the gen ed kids, oh my gosh, they learn so much. So much. Besides the fact that they're learning more about their skill by teaching somebody else, it's also the kind of thing where they're learning, oh, there's people in this world that aren't exactly like me, and that's okay, because we can still hang out and we can still be successful doing this thing together. And let me tell you, for teenagers to learn that is huge. Huge. So like everybody benefits. Me, as the staff, the teachers that work with these programs, I learn more from these two populations working together than I could even explain. It has become such my passion, so much what I'm about as a teacher now, because I've seen and I've learned so much from inclusion in the physical education setting. So why not? Let's do it. And let's do it well. There we go. Let's do it well. Okay, but now that we know all the hows, whys, whens, wheres, all the things, a couple things that I think are beneficial for people to know. You have to know your audience. You have to know who you're instructing. You have to know who you're helping in this mission for inclusion, okay? So what I've done in the past is I have done PD trainings for my district staff. So all of my elementary PE teachers, or I'm sorry, all of my gen ed PE teachers from my district on a PD day, those wonderful days where none of the sessions apply to us as physical educators, they actually let me run a session where I taught all of my gen ed PE teachers about basic disability awareness. And what I did was I basically chose the 4 frequent flyer disabilities in my district. So in my demographics, autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and intellectual disability are our 4 frequent flyers, okay? So I took those and I basically gave them information on, okay, how does the disability happen? Excuse me, what is the cause? Do we know? Whatever it is. What are some common traits? Physical appearances, but like physical traits, things like that. And I also talk about what possible limitations might arise in a physical education setting and strategies to help them be more successful in a PE setting. So those are the things that I really made sure that our teachers were more familiar with, so that when they are planning those modifications and those options for inclusion, they have that information in their head to be like, ooh, hey, so-and-so in that class, I remember Kasia saying that they really could use this, so I'm gonna use this. Just as an example, we have, let's say for Down syndrome, I would explain, you know, it's the abnormality of the 21st chromosome, and there's physical traits that look like this. One of the common things with Down syndrome is low muscle tone, and I will explain that low muscle tone does not mean they are not strong. And my students with Down syndrome tend to be the strongest people in my class, especially when they don't want to do something. And that it means that when your muscle is at rest, when I want to raise my hand, there's so much connect output coming, right, for me to do that. But they have to use twice as much. They have to work twice as hard to move their muscles, so they get tired easily. So what's an easy strategy? Offer frequent breaks. Then you're going to have them be less tired and less refusal behaviors, yada, yada, yada. So that's kind of what that looked like. Okay, so as a general PE teacher, if you're looking to do a really good job at inclusion, brush up on this kind of information. Look into what the most common disabilities are in your district and find out, talk to your special ed teachers, talk to your adapted PE teachers. They are the experts of their students, so use your resources. If you're an adapted PE teacher, you could take this information and talk to your district about doing a training like I did. It was kind of one of those things where it was like you could see the light bulb turning on, and my director of special ed was like, oh, we've never thought to do that. I'm like, I know, let's do it. And so we did. So, I mean, sometimes we have to be the ones that bring forward the need, that kind of shines the light on, hey, we have a need for this. So let's fill that need and let's service our students better by giving the teachers that have them the information they need. So another thing that is, I feel super important is if you are on board with inclusion and you are on board with supporting your students of all abilities, you could do everything right, but if you use language the wrong way, it ruins it. Okay, so I always teach people about person-first language. Person-first language is basically the order in which we use our words. So for example, in this session, I have always said students with special needs. Okay, that is me putting the student first, special needs is secondary, because that is not what defines them. They are a student, they are a person first. Okay, so if we talk about someone with autism, we say a girl who has autism, not an autistic girl. Saying an autistic girl, you are defining her by her autism. And that's not what it's about. That's not inclusive language. So we always want to put the person first. I don't like using labels at all in general if I don't have to, but I recognize that there are times that we have to. So if you're going to use labels, please make sure you are using it in a person first order. Okay? That's just such good information to always keep in mind. And to be honest, that applies to everything. Okay, also ability first mentality. Let's say you are doing a huge soccer game and here comes Matthew in his wheelchair. You're gonna look at Matthew and be like, oh great, this kid, what am I gonna do with him? He can't play soccer. That is not ability first mentality. You're gonna go over and you're gonna talk to his one-on-one aide and you're gonna say, okay, what can Matthew do with his legs? Can he take them off his foot plates and can he move his leg to kick? Or can he hold a stick and be a goalie? Or can he, you're gonna find different ways to first learn what he can do and then build on that for him to be successful, okay? Everything that I talk about today is so much about a lens, okay? What is your definition of success? That lens of success, that lens of inclusion, that lens of ability first. When a student with special needs comes into your class, how do you see them? Do you see them on what they can't do or what they can do? Because the can do lens is going to be a game changer for how they feel in your class and how successful they're able to be. Because you're going to set them up for success if you're using that can do lens. All right, moving right along, holy moly. Okay, so I talk a lot, sorry guys, I got so much. So inclusive programs, I have started unified PE in my district. I have it at my junior high and at my high school. So basically unified PE, you guys might be really familiar with it already, so I'm not going to go too much into the history and everything, but it's a part of the Special Olympics organization and it's awesome. You basically have a class that is equal parts with and without disabilities, okay? And the students participate in all of the activities together as a group. In my class, and it's funny, everyone I've talked to that does unified PE does it a little different, because what's great about it is Special Olympics will be the first to tell you, it's flexible. They have like guidelines to help get you started, but however it works best for your school, for your class, your program, cool. So I have my students partnered up, and every week they switch to a new partner because I want my gen ed kids experiencing different students of all different kinds of abilities. And I want my students with special needs to get as many social interactions, as many friendships, as many bonds as possible. So we rotate buddies every week. Now I've talked to teachers that rotate not at all. They get their buddy for the semester and they're together. So it's totally up to you. But what this does is it fosters an inclusive culture on campus, not just in your class, but on campus, because then, because of the buddy system, they go out and when they're passing between second and third period, they see each other like, oh, hey, buddy. And there's high fives and there's hugs and, well, maybe not hugs right now, but, and, you know, we go through lunchtime and all of a sudden there's this group of super cool high schoolers with one of my APE students right in the middle, hamming it up with them because they formed a bond in unified PE. It's awesome. Besides the fact that by the time the kids in my district get to junior high and high school, they've heard my voice for a really long time. So they get the exposure of learning from somebody else, which is highly motivating. I am not highly motivating anymore. So those peers, those mentors are their motivation, their friend, their coach, their cheerleader, they're everything. And a side note that I didn't really anticipate that's happened is I have learned from my students at the high school, this class has created so many future professionals in education. So I like to keep track of my students, and I have an Instagram page, and they follow me and whatnot. When they graduate, they'll leave me little messages. And I would say 60% of my gen ed students that do unified PE go into study either just education or even more specifically, special education. And they credit the unified PE class for that interest. And it's amazing because you're providing them this experience that they wouldn't normally have. I mean, how often do we get that close of a connection with all of these students in this fun play space that's very social in nature anyways? And then, you know, then they want to study it. And I'm like, yay! It just makes me so happy. Also, we do have unified sports, which is just like unified PE. So it's half and half, but it's an after school sports model. So we do, we basically each year pick a sport. And since my district is small, we only have one high school, we do it more intramural style where we practice at lunch and then we have a big game where we split our team in half and they play each other. This picture in the middle is our entire high school campus inside the gym at lunch cheering for our students at the game. The band plays, the cheerleaders are cheering, the athletic trainers are giving waters and granola bars, there's announcers. It is insane. The vibe and the feel and the energy is just, I cannot describe it. It's one of those things that's so hard to describe, but so worth it. It is my favorite day of the year. Another one that I've started in my district is, we call it Falcon Friends because one of my school's mascot is the Falcons. It's a recess play group. So at the elementary level, unified PE wasn't really a thing that I could start because I'm not there during their PE times. But I was like, hey, let's do a recess play group. So once a week, 5th and 6th graders who want to volunteer their time come out and they play with our Mod Severe students at recess time. We've learned that we have to structure activities for them because 5th and 6th graders are not super like taking the initiative and just leading games. But once we provided those structured activities, they really, really enjoyed that experience. And even the gen ed kids would get so disappointed if I had to cancel. Like if it was raining, they're like, why? I'm sorry, I don't make it rain. They really looked forward to Falcon Friends. So that's another really great opportunity that's super easy to start. Okay, so we've talked about all the things. The mission for effective inclusion accepted. Just some key points to remember, okay? You are the person who defines success, all right? You, as the teacher, you define success. Define it in a way that is inclusive. Educate yourself. So if you're a gen ed teacher who's not familiar with the students that are coming, ask your other teachers, read up on stuff, you know, take a little bit of time and it goes a long way. Use your resources, use your adapted PE teachers, use your classroom teachers, use those instructional aids. You know, I cannot emphasize that enough. Choose the right lens. Okay, remember, we choose what lens to view our students, our lessons, everything out of. Choose one of inclusion, choose that can-do lens, that ability first lens, and it'll take you so far. And celebrate the wins. Everything, you know, everything that we try for the first time can tend to be a little like, ooh, we find those hiccups or we find those hurdles, but celebrate the wins and keep pushing. It is well worth it. I can't explain enough how much I love our inclusion programs. And it is well worth the effort and the time, because our students, not just us, but our students are the ones that benefit from it so much. So that's it. We've covered a lot. I'm like, whew. Sorry. I haven't even seen the chat box. Does anybody have any questions?
I know, good job. You did it. That was awesome.
Thank you.
We had a couple comments about just sharing resources, and yeah, if you send them to the links to Jess, we can put it in a resource doc that we'll share out at the end of the conference or the workshop to everybody. But let me scroll through for more questions.
Yeah, if anybody has questions, don't be shy. Speak up. All right. All right. Well,
Let's see another. Oh yeah, your Instagram.
I'll send the motor skills. Oh, my Instagram and stuff. I know I took that off. Here, I'll type it in here. At APE _ Mrs. G. Oh, that was to you. Sorry.
Oh.
Can you share that?
Yeah.
Thanks. And then
Kendall had a question about, what if you are in a private school and have a limited resources? I guess what would be suggestions for connecting with other people?
So, okay, if she's still on, I would love a little bit more information. Is she still on? No. Okay. That's a hard question to answer. I'm not sure exactly what specifically she's referring to. Can you repeat it for me one more time?
Mm-hmm. So what if you're in a private school and have limited resources?
For Unified PE maybe. Special Olympics has grants. You can apply for a grant for Unified PE and Unified Sports. So you can go on the Special Olympics website and they have different grants and different ways that you can seek out funds for starting your program. And then you can keep applying a couple times, I think, after. So there's definitely resources there, so use those.
Cool. Good. Any other questions, comments, ideas?
All right.
And I'm going to drop in the chat also the attendance of, the certification card. So if you want to print that out and have that, you can be like, yes, I attended. It's great.
Oh my gosh, one of my former students is in here. Hi, Emily. Kendall, sorry, I just saw your message. Kendall, if you got my email me so that then I can chat with you about it. Because with private schools, I'm not exactly sure how your guys' funding works. But if you got, everyone, here we go. Here's my email address. And if I can't get you the right answer, I will get you to someone who has it. Awesome.
Another question about from, I hope I'm saying the name correctly, Marissa. What is the name of the grant for the resources you just mentioned?
So it's actually through Special Olympics. So if you go into the Special Olympics website and you go towards and you follow the links to Unified PE, they will have the information when you want to start a program. There's literally, you apply within Special Olympics for the grants. I don't know the specific names of them because it's been several years, but you definitely can find it on the website.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Also, I had another question about what kinds of things you keep in your bag of tricks that you mentioned earlier.
Everything, anything I can fit. So I usually keep a ball of every size, right? So like a playground ball, every size. So a 5-inch, a 7-inch, 8.5, and a 10. So I keep those. Wiffle balls, tennis balls, balloons, always balloons. There is never an age that grows out of balloons. I also keep jump ropes and an implement I can use for striking. So whether it's a racket or a bat, I usually try to keep one of each, like a pickleball paddle or a bat. And that is literally a bag I will carry everywhere besides what I've brought for my lesson, just so that I have backups or alternates or like options for my students. So, oh, bean bags. All right, any other questions?
Looks like Oscar has a question. So the statement is, I'm having a challenge with one of my students who is in a wheelchair since he gets out I think of his chair to participate, but when he does that, he crawls all around the playground, which causes him to get winded easily. So maybe some suggestions with students who have a wheelchair who can move in and out.
So he's ambulatory, but does he use a gait trainer at all? That's what I would ask.
Okay. No,
Okay.
he does not.
I'm assuming that there's an aid with that student because I would find it hard to believe that they'd have a student moving around, ambulating on the floor without one. And if it's on the playground, I mean, that's kind of, it's hard to say only because I don't know that student's particular limitations or abilities. And what I would say is, from a safety standpoint in my class, I have a student that can ambulate out of his chair, but I typically have him not unless all of the students are on the ground, because he is a knee walker and it's very unsafe for him and for other students. So a lot of times what we do, if we do, let's say it's beach ball volleyball, I have the entire class seated for the first round so that it levels the playing field. Everyone is seated on the ground, and I lowered the net, and we're playing beach ball volleyball, and he's out of his chair and he's able to ambulate without the safety hazard. Trying to level that playing field is important. So if there's ways that you can either get the rest of the class on that student's level or vice versa, I would try that, because that will help, again, with the inclusion piece, help that student feel like they're part of the group, part of the class, and more same. I hope that helps. I don't know if it helps.
No, that's a good point about leveling the playing field and making sure that the students would be playing at a similar level, and even just to experience a different level.
Yeah, they build their arm strength when all of a sudden all they're using are their arms. It's as they're moving, and their core strength when they're sitting up and moving. It's like, oh, look, we have other muscles.
Yeah. Oscar said yes, definitely helps, and he'll start implementing
Perfect.
some of those things.
Perfect. All right.
And Kasia, have you ever done like a like ability awareness week?
Yeah, so with my unified students, I do a ability awareness training with them where a lot of my high school students, because they're in a life skills program, they take CBI, so community-based instruction field trips. So a lot of times that is them being gone during my class. So I have my gen ed kids by myself or by themselves. And so I do the training with the frequent flyer disabilities. I do person first language. We learn about orthopedic impairments. We learn about visual impairments, and I teach them how to play goal ball. It's really fun. So yeah, I do that. I used to do an R word, spread the word to end the word presentation school wide at my junior high. So the Special Olympics organization has a mission to remove the R word. That's the word retard for anybody who's unfamiliar. And their mission is to remove that from people's language. So I would go and I would give like a speech basically to all of the junior high students about it. And that kind of laid into our, what do they call it? There's a week during the school year, a lot of schools do it, You Matter Week. And so during You Matter Week, it would be kind of like touching on making everybody feel special, and the language we use can really be impactful. So then I would talk about that. So in different ways, it hasn't been a full like part of my teaching unit, like my instruction, but I've done it in little pieces here and there.
Okay, awesome. I think I mispronounced your name wrong again. I think because I have a K, and so
it's okay.
No, it's a
It's
Kasia.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm used to it. Trust me. All right. Well, I think everyone's kind of popping out to other sessions, and I know Cindy's going to be doing one in the next round. Yay.
I know we definitely have awesome sessions following in the next hour, and then an incredible share panel at 11.
Yeah, I'll be there for that.
Yeah, so that's another great place to be. So thank you all for attending.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good luck doing inclusion.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Groton, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindy Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.